Hi guys, how are you doing today? Today we're going to install Menio object storage on Ubuntu 20.04. As you know, Ubuntu 20.04 is the latest version of Ubuntu. It has a lot of nice features. It has a very nice UI. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, you already know what Menio and object storage are. It basically allows you to store a lot of files and folders on a remote server location. It's very similar to Amazon S3. But the flexibility you get with Menio is that you can create your own buckets anywhere on any server, right? It doesn't have to be just Amazon. You can spin up a Linode server or a DigitalOcean server, and you can still create a Menio. Today I'll be showing you how to install Menio on your local machine, but you can do the same. You can follow the same procedure for any other remote device as well. The process is slightly long. As you can see, I've drawn up the whole process for you. These are all the steps. I'll take you through this diagram first, and then I'll actually take you through the installation one by one through the code. So the first step is, as you know, for every installation on Ubuntu, you have to update your app repositories. Then we'll install all the Menio servers binary files from their main server. Then we'll make the Menio file that we just installed. We'll make it executable. Then we'll move it to the local bin. And we'll be using something called as the system daemon to install and run Menio. So system daemon expects the Menio executable file in the local bin. So that's where we'll have to move it. Since we don't want to, Menio to have, basically we don't want to use our root user, right, to run Menio, so that if things go wrong, we don't want things to completely be damaged. So we'll create a new user to use Menio specifically, and we'll create a new directory for Menio to store its files. Then we'll give the ownership of the Menio directory that we just created to the Menio user that we just created in the step before. Then we'll create a folder for the Menio server to store its config files. And as you know, that for all the server configs are usually stored in the etc folder in Ubuntu. So that's where we'll be creating this file. Then we'll edit the default configurations that Menio provides you, and we'll put some new configurations that will help us to run Menio smoothly. Then we'll download the official Menio service files from GitHub repository. Then we'll check the contents of the Menio service. Then we'll move the Menio service files into the system folder in systemd, as that's where the daemon expects it to be. Then we'll reload the daemon so that it can locate the new files. Then we'll start Menio server. We'll check the status of the Menio server. We'll add some firewall rules. We'll enable the firewall. Now we'll basically, I think there's one step missing, which is enabling the Menio server. Basically, we have to enable it to run on boot really easily. So and after that we start it, and then then you add your firewall rule so that the firewall does not end up stopping it. Then you'll basically use Menio from your local host, right? So I hope these steps do make a little bit of sense. Even if they're not clear, it's not a problem, because I'll take you through the code one by one now. Now I have written down all the commands that I'll be using in this video. In this file, I'll be copy and pasting all these commands into the description box in the YouTube video, so that you don't have to actually struggle, or you don't have to basically you won't end up making any typo mistakes or errors in your when you are installing it. So this is my terminal. I'll clear everything first, and then I'll, as you know, before we start, we'll have to sudo apt update everything. So I've updated my app repositories. Then I'll use wget. If you don't have wget, you'll have to install wget, and I'm going to use wget to install Menio servers binary files. Then I'll make this file an executable. Just taking quite some time. It's saying 2%. So I'll just stop this video here, and I'll just come back when it's done. So I'm back, and as you can see, Menio binary files have been installed using wget from the Menio server release Linux link. Now let's make it an executable file. Copy, paste. It's executable now. Now let's move this file to local bin, where systemd or the system daemon expects it to be. And as I had said, we don't want to use our root user, so we'll be creating a new user called the Menio user. In my case, it says the Menio user already exists because I've already created it. And we'll give the ownership of the Menio executable file that we've just shown you. And we'll give the ownership to the Menio user that we just created. Let's create a directory where Menio will store all its files. So the directory will be inside local share Menio. And since in my case it already exists, it won't create it, but it will create it for you. And we'll give the ownership of this directory to the new user, which is Menio user. Done. Now, since all the config are usually in the etc folder, right? Like I had mentioned in the diagram. So we'll be creating a folder called Menio inside the etc folder, so that it has so that Menio can store all its configurations. We'll give ownership of this again to the Menio user. Done. Now let's open the default Menio configurations. So this is the file. So I've opened it using Nano, the Nano text editor. You will see something else here, but these are different settings, right? There are two sets of settings. So one is a setting out here, which the official Menio documents, they'll give you this setting, and in my laptop, at least on the latest Ubuntu version, it doesn't work. So if you go to the Menio documentation, they have not covered 20.04. They've only covered 18.04. So when you use these settings, it gives you an error. So this is why I'm using these new settings that I found somewhere from the internet, and these really work really well. So what I'll do is I'll leave these in the description box, so you can see basically you're setting the volumes, you're setting the options, which is basically your local host address, and 9199 is the port, and your Menio access key is Menio, secret key is Menio123, and these are my default settings for Menio, which I have edited, right? So these are the ones that you need to put as well. And now we'll download the official Menio service files from GitHub. So this is the GitHub link, and we'll curl. We'll find the we'll download the exact files. Then we'll check the contents of this file using nano minio.service. So these are the entire contents. You don't need to use them right now, but I'm just showing it to you so that you know where this file is if you need to edit them later on. Then we'll move the Menio service into the systemd folder, the Menio service into the systemd folder, because systemd expects to find it there. And we'll sudo and then we'll systemctl. We'll reload the daemon basically. So daemon reload. What this does is it tells system daemon that we have entered new files here, so we expect it to find it. So when you reload it, it finds those files. Then we'll start sudo systemctl enable. So before that, I'll enable Menio, then I'll start Menio. You have to enable it because you want Menio to start every time your laptop boots, your desktop boots, right? So that's why you need to enable it, and then you start the Menio service. And then once you've started it, then you can check the status Menio. So as you can see, it's active and it's running. This is the message that you want. You want it to be active and running. And now let's add some firewall rules so that the firewall does not stop it when I reboot my desktop. Sudo ufw allow 9199, and then you have to enable ufw, enable the firewall. Done. Sorry, ufw enabled. Now let's see how to use Menio. So if I go to my localhost 9199, I can see the Menio here. I can log out, log out. So you'll the settings that we had entered in the default configuration file, that's the setting you need to use here. Access key is Menio and secret key is Menio123. And once you log in, you can see your objects and your buckets here, and you can upload a file or you can create a new bucket here. So this is very, very straightforward. And then you can link those files into your website or your software, whatever you want to do with that. So I hope the whole process was very clear to you. I think I'll just go over this again so that you can understand exactly what we did, and I'll leave all these commands in the description box below so that you can copy and paste them. So basically, we updated our app repository, then we installed minio-service binary files. We made the file executable. We moved it to local bin because the system daemon expects to find it there. We created a new user for Menio called minio-user because we don't want the root user to crash if something goes wrong. Then we created a new directory for Menio to store its files. We gave ownership of this new directory to the new user we just created. Then we created a folder in the etc folder because that's where all the configs, server configs are usually stored. And then we edited the default configurations. Then we downloaded the official Menio repository from GitHub. Then we checked the contents. We moved Menio service files to system folder. Then we reloaded the daemon so that it can locate the new files. Started the server, checked the status, added firewalls rule, enabled them, and we used Menio from localhost. I hope this video was helpful to you, and thanks a lot for watching.